I've been training to be a championship sprinter since I was 8 years old. With the help of my parents, my coaches, and my teammates, I did it. By sophomore year of high school in 2018, I was one of the top 5 female high school sprinters in Connecticut. But then, one day, I wasn't. At the state championships that year, 2 people passed me, passed all of us girls, literally. They finished first and second in our races, dominating the field. Were they more motivated? Did they train harder? I don't think so. But they did have an edge, a big one we couldn't match. They were biological boys who said they were transgender girls.
Hello there. So I've been gone for a bit of a while. The reason? No reason. Just haven't felt like working on videos. But I decided to go back to it and, hey, let's check out PragerU. How long until we find some transphobia? Well, that didn't take long. So this one is called The End of Women's Sports. Like they give a damn about women's sports. If reactionaries had their way, women's sports would be done away with so that women would only have child-rearing to focus on. So our presenter is Selena Soul. Has PragerU ever gone this young before? She's younger than Azuma. Am I Azuma? I think I am. Anyway, you've already heard her sob story about training really hard and failing against transgender girls. Oh boo-hoo-hoo, poor me. Of course, we have to take everything that she says at face value, as she's just providing her personal anecdote about failing against 2 trans girls. I am reminded of Renee Richards, a trans woman who was prohibited from participating in women's tennis until she took the United States Tennis Association to court, and after they gave her the okay, she lost in the first round and retired 4 years later. I mean, if we're just going to share meaningless stories around, what else has she to say?
Males competing against females? Before you make up your mind, let me tell you a bit about what it took for me to become a top female sprinter. It meant training with my team every day after school for at least 2 hours, working to shave fractions of a second off of my time in the 100 and 200 meter dash. It meant not hanging out after school or going out with friends on the weekends. It meant getting up early every Saturday morning and competing all day at a meet. It meant not indulging in any of the things that might cost me my dream. And here's the thing about the 2 biological males that took the top 2 girls' medals in the state of Connecticut. Their times were not even good enough to qualify them to compete in the state championships on the boys' team. Let me say that again in case you missed it. Their times were not good enough to qualify them for the boys' state championships.
Their times were not good enough to qualify for the boys' state championship? What's your point? Why would a trans girl try to qualify for the boys' championship? Is your time good enough? Of course, this is irrelevant because transgender athletes have to be on hormones for an appropriate length of time to even qualify for their preferred gender's division, and hormones greatly decreases muscle mass and stamina, among other things.
But 2 years in a row, they won first and second place competing against the girls. All in all, these two biological males won 15 women's state championship titles. Some in the media have accused me of being a sore loser. They tell me to run harder. But the biological changes that males go through during puberty are so significant, they gain an insurmountable advantage in strength and in speed. That's why boys always competed against boys and girls against girls.
And those advantages are largely eliminated if they've been on hormones long enough. Also, I assume that we have to take for granted that these trans girls did go through a male puberty. But they might not have. I don't know. I mean, if they haven't gone through a male puberty, then you can't even argue that they have an advantage. Now, admittedly, there are a few specific scenarios when a trans woman that has experienced a male puberty would have a slight edge. Basketball, for example. Post-male pubescent trans women tend to be taller than cis women, but in, say, gymnastics, a trans woman's greater height would be a disadvantage. This video is definitely from a biased angle, and they're trying to paint the image that trans women competing against cis women will result in poor women competing against people that look like Randy the Macho Man Savage.
And is it correct you just started identifying as female 2 weeks ago?
I'm not here to talk about my transition. I'm here to kick some f***ing ass. Let me tell you something, Dingleberry.
David Perry.
If I didn't know that South Park was transphobic, that would ironically be the perfect representation of what reactionaries think of trans women in sports. But alas, South Park is transphobic. One last thing about wrestling before moving on. Thank you, Taker.
US runner Allison Felix is an inspiration to me. She's the fastest female sprinter in the world. Her lifetime best for the 400 meters is 49.26 seconds. But based on 2018 data, nearly 300 high school boys in the US alone could beat that record.
I couldn't find a source for this. I could only find Alison Felix's record, so that checks out. But even then, we're talking about trans girls. Assuming that they've been on hormones for long enough, and that their testosterone is low enough. Women have testosterone too. It doesn't matter. How fast were these trans girls' times? Did they beat you by several seconds or by a fraction of a second? I don't know. Perhaps PragerU doesn't want us to know.
What we are talking about then is not just boys taking women's trophies, though they are. And we aren't talking about biological boys taking women's athletic scholarships, though they'll do that too. When biological boys are allowed to compete against girls in sports like track, where the differences in performance are so great, we are talking about girls getting shut out, never getting the chance to win or even compete at all. When two biological boys took the first and second place spots against me in the 2019 Indoor State Championship, I lost the opportunity to participate at the New England Championships. I lost the chance to be scouted by top coaches, possibly even to win scholarships. Right now, biological boys are being allowed to set records on the girls' team, deleting girls' records, erasing the achievements of actual girls, and setting a standard probably no girl can meet, no matter how much she trains or how hard she tries.
Trans women have been competing in women's sports for years. All of the most famous female athletes are cisgender. Your concerns are a smokescreen for transphobia. I'm also getting a little bit distracted because this girl looks somewhat like another girl that I went to high school with, except that the girl I went to high school with has red hair, and hopefully isn't transphobic.
The reason that we have girls' sports in the first place is to give female athletes with talent, hard work, and dedication an equal opportunity to shine and be recognized. But girls will never have that opportunity if they are forced to compete with biological boys in sports like track and field, softball, volleyball, or basketball. Women fought too hard for too long so girls like me can have the opportunity to compete on a level playing field. Maybe worst of all, when girls try to object, we would point out the truth that biological differences in strength and speed between boys and girls are massive and real. We're called bigots.
The truth is that you are a bigot. Well, the people that approached you and gave you the script for this are bigots. She's probably just a talking head that doesn't really believe this and had no creative input in the writing of the script. As I already said, trans women are not setting all the records. This is a non-issue.
Administrators, teachers, coaches, and other students tell us to just keep quiet and take it. We are told a girl's place is to be seen and not heard.
Whoa, you're just projecting right now. All this script is calling for you to project. Now, America is a free country, so you should be able to say whatever you want and shouldn't be silenced. But if they expect you to be silent, they also expect those trans girls to be silent. Perhaps that's why we aren't hearing from them.
Well, we won't be silenced. We are fighting back. With 2 other top female runners in Connecticut, I have filed a federal lawsuit under Title IX to protect the rights of women and girls to a fair competition on a level playing field.
Good luck with that.
Please don't turn your backs on us, America. This isn't about gender identity. It's about fair play. I'm Selena Soul for Prager University.
Hey, I'm all for fair play, but the fairness has to extend both ways. If trans women are women, then they have to be able to compete in women's sports. And they should also spend an appropriate amount of time on hormones. Also, do these people not realize that making trans people compete in the same division as their birth sex means that you'll also have trans men who have been on testosterone being forced to compete against cis women? That actually happened. That happened in Texas, a red state. A transgender boy was forced to compete against girls even though he didn't want to. That is the true end of women's sports. Of course, in a perfect world, this boy would have been able to compete against other boys. Also, I love that this video's thumbnail has a hairy man with a mustache representing a trans woman. How many trans women have mustaches? Wouldn't that cause gender dysphoria? Wouldn't having that much body hair cause gender dysphoria? It does. So in short, PragerU continues to produce stupidity. Trans people should be allowed to compete in the division of their preferred gender, provided they've been on hormones long enough. And yeah, that's about it. Sayonara.